I start with thank you to Sam Carter, who helped me yesterday with the presentation, and I proudly present my first presentation using the Moloch theme. Okay, this is what I try to do. I try to elaborate my problems when designing a program API for colors, then my design objectives, the design, and some examples. Okay, this is a situation I think was current at the time when we had the current primitives for PDF tech. And the thing is that you have a tech engine and you want to do tech primitives. That's over on the right-hand side. And you must implement all the tech primitives in your engine. That's your problem. And what the second problem is, you need to put, you need to make from these primitives something that you can represent in your tech output. And the tech output in that case was PDF, and PDF belonged to Adobe and later became a standard. So you cannot change PDF tech. So you have only a little bit of design space making these primitives map to the primitives of PDF. PDF itself is restricted because PDF needs to render somehow the primitives that it has, and in the 90s graphics cards were not what we have today, and PDF actually was for printing on paper, and you have even more restrictions on color if you print on paper. So these primitives that you are here are restricted, and what you can do here is restricted. And once you fix the primitives, you define what is available to the macro packages, and the macro packages define what is available when you write your input file. So you are pretty limited in what you can if you do PDF, and this is my situation. I define the primitives, I write the tech engine, I define the output file format, I write the rendering, and the graphics card that we have today can do practically anything you like. So I have a much bigger design space on how I can shape my primitives. And so for what purpose do I use this freedom? So here are my design objectives. Of course, I want to be powerful and flexible. They should be easy to use. They should respect somehow the structure and the spirit of tech. That's a bit soft, but the idea should be clear. And they should allow an efficient implementation. And they should be compatible with the existing designs. So that's a lot of conflicts in this design space. Now the next thing is I present my design and we will see how far I got. Okay, internal representation. Internally, that means in the file format and in the tech engine, there is only one representation of a color. It's 4 byte, one for red, for green, for blue, and an alpha channel. And the meaning of it is this standard RGBA alpha model. There is only one representation of a color. Every color is 4 byte. Then colors always come as color pairs, one for foreground and one for background, always. You have always 2 colors. And color pairs always come as a color set. So you have 3 pairs, one for normal text, one for highlighted text, and one for focused text, possibly more in the future. And color sets come always in multiple color sets that form a color specification. I start with 2 color sets in a specification, one for day mode and one for night mode. And of course you can think of a colorblind mode or a high contrast mode or whatever mode. So there might be more modes in the future. And all this color specification, color data means that's one color specification. I do that because I want to separate the different concerns. The document author determines what color specifications are available for the whole document, And at any point in any point in the document, I have only a single valid color specification. You know exactly, if you are here, that's my valid color specification, and if I highlight that and I'm in dark mode, I know what foreground and what background is. The user can select the mode. So a user can say, I want to have dark mode or light mode or colorblind mode, and the renderer decides, the rendering engine decides, okay, I need to highlight this part, or I have to focus on this part, or it's just normal text. So these are the three things that come together. Useful defaults make your life easier because such a color specification involves a lot of colors, and you don't want to give all the different colors always, so you have useful defaults and you can rely on these defaults if you don't want to specify something else. And the whole scheme should be extensible if needed. Well, apart from the internal representation, we start with the external representation, how it looks in the HiTeX primitives that I offer. So I have two ways of specifying a foreground, one with uppercase FG and one with lower FG. And in both cases, the alpha value, that's the thing that is the last value that is in square brackets here, means it's optional. You can leave out the alpha values and then you get an opaque color. These integer values that you use with the uppercase foreground are values between 0 and 255 because internally you have a byte value, and that's just some available byte values. And integers, of course, can be given in decimal, or in TeX you can use a double quote prefix and give them in hexadecimal. The numbers, that's with a lowercase foreground, is numbered between 0 and 1, but you must be aware that something like 0.5 is immediately mapped in the internal representation to something like 125, yeah? No, 128. Here are some examples. For instance, if you say foreground 255.00, that's solid red. You can write it with double quotes FF, or you can use the lowercase letters and then you say 100. And you can also say 1001 and specify explicitly that you have an opaque color with an alpha value of 1. Foreground 111 is equivalent to foreground with uppercase 255, 255, 255, and it's solid white. But if you mix the two, if you say uppercase foreground 111, then you get a pretty dark gray. I mean, 000 would be black, and this is just a little bit. Probably you wouldn't see the difference between black on your monitor. So it's really important if you use lowercase letters with small numbers or uppercase letters with big numbers. Okay. No. Okay. Background 110305 is light yellow. You have a little bit of blue in it, so it gets lighter, and it's transparent with 0.5, so you can look through. Okay. Now, in an external representation of the TeX primitives, you always give a full color specification. That's a lot of colors. So, first thing, you can leave out the dark mode. It's in square brackets, so it's optional. If you don't specify, you get default colors for the dark mode. You have a color set, but the color for the highlighted and for the focus text are optional. So you just can specify one color pair. And a color pair, always the background is optional, so you can make the representations short. And there is a primitive, it says just hint, which hint is a prefix for all the HiTeX primitives, hint, color, and then you give a color specification, and this specification activates the given color, and from there on, all the next colors are next glyphs and rules are colored with a new color. Okay, for instance, you say hint color foreground 001, and from then on you have a blue foreground. You say hint color foreground 001 and dark 001.5. So you have blue text in day mode, and you have a slightly darker blue in the dark mode. Or here is another specification. You say hint color foreground 000 black, highlighted becomes 001, so it's blue if you highlight it. And if it is in focus, then you have a foreground of blue, but the background gets a transparent yellow. So these are possible color specifications, and they're pretty short because most of the specification is just defaults. Yeah, missing parts, you get default values, and there are reasonable defaults for the file format. So if you don't specify any, if the renderer doesn't find anything in the file, there are file format defaults, and you can change these defaults using a primitive. You are limited a bit currently because you have only 255 color specifications, because internally I use a single number to specify this is color specification number 5, and now I change to color specification number 17. So that limits the amount of available color specifications. And such a specification affects all rules, glyphs, and the background from now on. And especially for the background will fill horizontal boxes from top to bottom and then to the right, and vertical boxes from left to right and down. So you can change the color of the background in the middle of a box. The effect will persist until the next color specification or the end of the enclosing box. So with the box, the specification ends. The specifications are local to the boxes. Now, if you have colors local to boxes, you have to do something with line breaking, because you have a paragraph and you say green and you want to have green text. And if you break it into 2 boxes and 2 lines, HiTeX tracks color changes and will insert the new, say, current color specification at the end of the line, at the beginning of the new line. So it moves from one box to the next. This also means that material that you put in with vertical adjust between the lines is not affected by the color changes inside the paragraph. It's separate because it goes in an outer box. Similar with the vertical split. If you split a vertical box and your box ends with a certain color, that color specification will be copied into the remainder of that vertical box. And same with page breaking. If you have a certain color at the end of the page, it will automatically be inserted on the top of the next page. Special care, that's a little problem. If the height and the depth changes, then the height and the depth of the background will change, and you will see that. If you don't have a background, as is usual in tech, you don't see it, but for instance, in a paragraph, there might be lines that have a descender, and then the background descends, and they are lines that are higher than others, and the height and the depth depends on line breaking, so you have to be careful if you experiment with backgrounds in paragraphs, colored backgrounds. Good. Now, colors and nesting. Colors are limited to the enclosing box. So within a box, you have at any point exactly 1 color specification, but tech maintains a color stack. That's part of tech. It's not part of the hint file format. But when tech generates the files, he has this color stack, and it gives you an end color primitive. And the end color just returns to the color that you had before the last change So you can have something like nested colors because of that stack inside of a box. And extra uses of hint and color are silently ignored, so you can make sure that you return to normal by using an extra end color. Nesting of boxes causes nesting of color specifications. That means inner boxes are displayed on top of outer boxes. So if you have an inner box with an opaque background color or opaque color, they hide the outer box behind it. And if you have transparent background, you will see the outer box or its background through the inner box. So they shine through. We will see examples. Yeah, and opaque hides it. Now links is something that often uses colors to set apart the links. So there is something special. The hint link color specifies colors for the links that follow. So if you say start a link, you automatically get the current link color. And when you end the link, it's like the end color and you return to normal. So links are special in that way that are coupled with color changes. And again, you have reasonable defaults and you can override them. The hint start link and the hint end link also is a kind of grouping. So after the hint end link, you get back to the color that you had before the link, even if you change the color within the link. Okay, yeah, you can mix hint color, hint end color, hint start link, and hint end link. And you don't necessarily need to have them properly nested, but then you might get unexpected effects. Okay, here are the examples. That's maybe the interesting part. The first example defines a macro called red tech for the red tech logo, and it just says hint color red, and then you have the tech macro, and then you say hint end color. So you switch to red foreground, and then you switch off. And I have a second thing that is hint note, and I say, okay, when I have a note, I want to have a gray, light gray color, and when I say end note, it returns to the previous color. And then I have a little text. This is an example showing the red tech logo in red color, and then note. Note how the red tech logo is still red inside this note. And to the right, you see the red tech logo, and the end color returns to black. And inside the note, the end color here returns to the outer color. So you can use it. Questions to this one? Okay. This is with a link. I have just a definition for red, and it switches the color to red. And I have the note and end note macro as that we have seen before, and I have a home macro with an argument, and it just makes a link where you go to the home page, and the text for that link is the parameter, and then you say end link. And the text is just the link, home, follow the red flag. So I change the color in the middle of the link to get red. And the same inside a node where you have a gray background. Now if you look at the link takes the default link color, which is blue. And the red before the flag changes to red. So the flag is part of the link, but it's now red. And hyphenation, or line breaking breaks the links between the first and the second line, but it's technically it's then two different links, but they both go to the same position. And inside the inside the node, when you say end link, you automatically return to the gray color. Oh, good. I'm ahead of time, my planning. So last example. I have a colored tech logo. I define hint color blue, and the blue macro just keeps the foreground black, 0, 0, 0, but it specifies a background which is a transparent blue. The red does the same, black foreground and a transparent red background. Green is a black foreground and a transparent green background. And now I redefine the TeX logo. I take the T, put it in a box and say blue. So you get a box with black text and a blue background. Then comes the kern and the lower and another box with the E inside, and the box gets a red transparent background, and the X gets a green transparent background. Now when you display it here, you can see that every character has is in a box, and the box has a background, and where the boxes overlap, you can see that here the blue background shines through to the red background, and here you have the green background on top of the red background, and you see also that the serif of the E shines through that green glass that is around the X. That's what you can do. It's boxes and yeah, layering boxes, inner boxes and outer boxes, and earlier boxes and later boxes. Okay, summary. It's still experimental. I plan to include it in TeX Live 25, and I welcome suggestions. Write me an email, and thank you for your attention and questions.
Oh, thank you, Martin, for your talk. Questions?
You mentioned that the colors are given in linear sRGB, and I'm wondering about two things there basically. One is you mentioned also that you basically have 256 options in the linear model. So by using a linear model, but also having basically integer values, you basically have a rather not so fitting match in the different lightness scales. So all the light colors will look very similar. Do you have some way of adjusting that so that you have more useful colors available?
Well, I have all the colors available, but the number of color specifications is limited.
No, I meant for the actual value, you meant that each component has one of only 256 options. Yeah.
Each color channel has 256 options, but you don't get more on, I don't know any computer screens where you get more colors than that. It's a limit on the amount of colors you can get. You have a couple of million colors, but that's, it's a limit of, but I don't think this is a limit if you, well, the target for HiTeX is looking at material on the computer screen. And on the computer screens, physically, the amount of colors you can really represent is even smaller than the 32-bit representation.
Yeah, I'm not so sure due to linear factors, but besides that, you mentioned also that it's sRGB, and most modern computer screens have much bigger color spaces. So do you have some plugins to actually represent more colors than represented in sRGB?
That is one suggestion that I welcome. I'm not a color specialist. We can talk about that. I don't think that I would go to representing using more than 32 bits for one color. That's probably an implementation limit that I should keep. The interpretation, whether I have sRGB or some nonlinear something, we can talk about that. The sRGB, the S is for standard, just means that is a color space that is reproducible on most machines. So when you move from one screen to another one, sRGB guarantees somehow that the color will look the same. And I thought this is more important than having too many colors. But we can talk. Maybe you have a good argument.
My argument is that if we are doing typesetting, then 15 colors is too much. Maybe 63, but 255 is definitely too much.
Too much. There's no one forcing you to use all of them. I think Joseph has.
No users.
I know, yeah. I know. The first request for improvement of the hint file format was we want to have color. I never thought of starting with colors, but it was the first request that I got.
You've decided to have a color model in which you have a foreground color and a background color tied together, whereas other backends for tech, we only have, if we want to do a background, we typically do that by coloring a rule. So it has a foreground color which applies to a rule, and so you have two components. Do you see that being a problem? I'm thinking that means if you write a tech file for hint, you can't then use this, you have to use quite a different setup to color background in any other workflow.
I considered using colored rules instead of backgrounds, but I thought it is more in the spirit of tech to tie the background to the box instead of to the rule and regard rules as foreground. That was just a feeling that this is more in the spirit of tech, but it's experimental and yeah.
I mean, it's quite abstractable. I'm just wondering.
Yeah, you can work around. If you want to have separate colors for rules, it's probably more expensive because whenever you do the rule, you need to change the color into the rule color. So you have an extra hint color and then the rule and then hint end color. You can do that. I'm not sure how much we use currently colored backgrounds.
Well, people use it quite a lot for colored boxes. So you think about T-color box or something.
Yeah, but for colored boxes, that's exactly what I thought. Well, then you color the box.
Any further questions?
Also for background colors, how is this handled if you have a background color set and then create a nested box? Does it automatically reset the background color to transparent, or do you actually inherit the background color and then see the overlapping of the background colors?
Usually, if you have an inner box, it does not have a background. You have to really set it. Yeah? So usually, if you have a just normal box, it has a transparent background, and you will not see anything of the box. And you can set the color and say, okay, then it has a color. Yeah.
Are there any questions from the internet? Then, thanks again for your talk.